Hi everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to episode
Number
9
yeah.
of Web Analytics TV. My name is Avinash.
And I'm Nick.
And we're going to go through your wonderful questions, a thick stack of them, and try and answer them as soon as and as best as we can. Let me remind you at the very beginning that underneath the blog post that goes with the video is a link to the place that you can go and submit more questions. So please go ahead, because we really want to be the best in terms of responding to your questions and be very relevant to you.
We want to be the best web analytics TV show, right?
Well, we're the only one, that helps. All right, Nick's ambitious, right?
All right.
Let's see that here. All right, Nick,
All right,
let's
so
go.
first question for you. Aloha, Nick and Avinash.
It's the ironic thing. These are aloha from Poland.
So I have a question regarding PPC campaigns. How can one check if users brought to the website via PPC campaigns are coming back using different traffic sources? In other words, how to track PPC users' loyalty? It's a good question.
From Matthews in Poland. And, well, it's a very hard question you've given me, Nick, to start with.
You set the bar high.
Actually, it turns out, Matthews, that you can actually do this with Google Analytics app. So you can actually enhance the Google Analytics code so it tracks where the first referrer came from in terms of an ad campaign. You can also set it to where the last one came from. But this history that you want to create across campaigns is actually something that's very difficult to do with any web analytics tool, not just Google Analytics. If you have data warehousing versions of tools, you can potentially write queries that would allow you to do it. We're also looking for developers who can probably hack something with their API. So go at it, but it's actually not possible for you to do with the Google Analytics front end that you have today. You can go the first or the last. But when it comes to AdWords specifically, we've released a new feature called search funnels. And so you could use the Google Analytics search funnel features, at least for your paid search campaigns. You'll be actually able to create a funnel from the first referral to the second to the third to the fourth and see the whole funnel created in Google Analytics and Google AdWords as well. So use that for those things, but you cannot do this with Google Analytics, unfortunately. So the next one's for you, Nick, and it is from Neil in Southampton, England. And it says, hello, Nick and Avinash. We run analytics for many clients from a central login and would like to be able to share custom segments and advanced reports so that they can see them when they log in via their account. What is the best and easiest way to do this? A great question.
It's a great question.
2 of our favorite features.
Absolutely. And so for each of these features, custom reports and advanced segments, in the UI, when you log in, there's actually a share link where you can actually grab a link and send it to your friends and share it with them. So what I'd recommend doing is going in, getting all your favorite reports, and actually copying the link and putting them into a document that you can share with all your clients.
Yeah, on a blog post.
And you put them in a blog post, share them with us, share them with your clients. You can even put context around them. So you can say, when you look at this report, you should be analyzing this metric, these dimensions.
Yes.
So use the links to share with your clients.
Great. And if you like a blog post, let us know. We'll import your great ideas into our accounts and play with it. And it's a really great way for all of you who are listening to this video to really apply your thinking to your vertical, your industry, your type of website, and really share your intelligence and glory with more people. So it's actually a great way to share.
Great. So this next question comes from Ian in the UK. How can we get a profile to show transactions from just one affiliate? An include filter on e-commerce store or order location doesn't work. All transactions are listed. Transactions not matching the filter show £0 in revenue, but quantities are greater than 0. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a great one. I think that you can do a lot of good and bad with it, filters. And so my default to do these things is to simply use our advanced segmentation feature in Google Analytics. As long as you have a key that you can use either from the URL parameter or some other way in which you're tracking your affiliates, as long as you have a UTM, one of the UTM things, you should be able to go into advanced segmentation, create an advanced segment which will only track that one affiliate, apply the segment on your e-commerce report, and really what you've done is looking from everybody down to just that one affiliate. So I highly recommend that all of you switch away for especially use cases like this, to actually using advanced segmentation, because it's the cleanest and the best way to do it. And also with filter, isn't there another issue in terms of the data processing, Nick?
Right, so what happens with the filter, so there's profile filters and report filters, and when you apply a report filter to any report, all you're doing is taking what's there and reducing the number of rows that we return. We're not recomputing anything. So it's not like you're getting brand new data, you're just getting less data of what we already had.
Yes.
You have to use advanced segments to hit a different part of our processing pipeline, and you'll get all your data recomputed for this one affiliate.
Yeah, it's like we're reprocessing history, which is something actually you can't do with many tools.
Right.
Excellent, that's a good one, Nick.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Oh, sorry, this one's for you, Nick.
I think it's for
hang
me,
on,
yeah.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, this one's for you. I've produced, this is for Phil in London. Thank you, Phil.
It's actually for both of us, so
I
that's
know,
why I'm
that's fine.
confused.
I've produced a list of regular expressions which I would like to share. Do you have a regex library or repository where I can post these? This is a good question.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything right now. We just released an app gallery. You can share your third-party integrations. We'd like to find better ways that you can share other things with people, but currently not for scripts and these type of regex. But it's a great idea. We'll take it.
And also, I mean, but Nick is very active on our blog. So if you have written something on a blog post where you've shared with the world, I mean, we're happy to
publish that
blog about that
exactly.
and write it, or even publish that on our blog. So you can seek Nick out or me out, and we definitely want your ideas to be shared with a wider audience. We don't have a forum for regex, but perhaps the Google Analytics blog, the official one, is a great source, Nick. So that's a good one. Another one for you, Nick, from Jenbits in New York. And Jens Bits. So Jens Bits.
Is it a company or
no?
I don't know. Okay.
And Jens Bits asks, I have cross-domain tracking implemented across using the async code. Everything works fine unless they click. Everything works fine up to a point. That's life, you know. Everything works fine unless they right-click and open the second domain's link in a new tab. This is a corner case, I think. And in this case, the cookie parameters are not appended to the URL. Anything I can do. My goodness. My goodness, this is amazing.
No, it's a good point, right? So you have a link on the site.
Give us an answer.
Well, just to clarify, right? When you have a link on the site and you right-click your mouse, you can say open a new window or new tab.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so sometimes that won't get tracked. Actually, many times it won't. So the reason why is when we do cross-domain tracking, what we're actually doing is you call a certain method on a link, and when you click the link, it'll actually use JavaScript to redirect you to a new page.
Oh, I see.
So because you're actually clicking the right click button, the right mouse button, and you're selecting something, the JavaScript is not being executed, and therefore it's not being tracked. So one way that you can think about this is instead of using JavaScript in fancy ways to redirect users, you can actually use JavaScript to rewrite the links, the actual links that the browser will use, and append all the tracking parameters. So it's a little bit, we don't do it by default because it's a little, you have to be careful on the site you're using, but by rewriting these URLs with these linking parameters, like when the page loads, it'll work. When you right click and go to the new page, all those parameters will already be there.
Yes, and for custom, sort of for cross-domain tracking especially, there are a lot of variables you have to consider. There are lots of pros and cons you have to go through. So I would never implement the recommendation from Nick all by myself. I would just go and get a GAC. Oh no, what are they called now? GACP.
CCP, yeah.
I forget what they stand for. But anyway, one of our GACs, GACP.
Certified partners.
There you go, Google Analytics Certified Partners. And get one of them to help you with this. They actually come with very affordable prices, and they can happily help you implement the recommendation from Nick. And they'll make sure that you stress all the pros and cons to make sure you're making the right decision. So just a quick word of advice to use GACs for this process.
Sounds good. All right, a question for you. This is from Jory Block in the Netherlands.
Hello.
Hi, Nick and Nash. This is from our episode. Last week, we've implemented the async code. That's great. Since then, our quality score for AdWords has dropped.
Correlation is not causality.
So our issue is page speed when they're working on it. Can Google measure page speed more accurately through async code and punish us? Thanks in advance.
I know.
Is Google going to punish me?
If Google could do all the things people say Google does, my God, this company would be worth a lot more money. No. So let me categorically tell Jury and everybody else who's watching our TV episode that those two things have nothing to do with each other. So the search engine, does its work and indexing and all the ranking and everything else independently and separately from the activities that are happening with Google Analytics, the tool. So there's no connection between those two systems. It's also very important to understand that unlike your hypothesis, async code actually speeds up your page loading time. I mean, the reason we invented async code, which is unique amongst all web analytics vendors, is that the tag loads much faster and you collect data more. In fact, recently we tweeted and blogged about this, that the benchmarks we're seeing is almost 30% faster loading and collecting more data, in fact, more accurately. So async code will help your pain of having your pages load faster. and it has nothing to do with any connection to quality score or AdWords. It's a different system. It uses its own methodologies and ranking factors. So anything you do to improve your page speed, like using async code and removing code of other web analytics vendors, will actually improve your things that happen by search engines like Google and Bing that are focusing on speed. So think about that. Good point.
Great. So,
oh, another one for me, yeah.
Another question for you. So this is from Jacob B. in Israel.
Hello.
Google Analytics has a great view option called comparison. Unfortunately, it does not work with 2 time periods. It would be really nice to compare 2 time periods by % change in top content and keywords reports, and or have % change in advanced filter. So what do you think about that, Avinash?
Yeah, Jacob, I really have to admit that I sincerely, honestly, really hard tried to figure out how I could possibly do this, and I have failed. I think so. Remember, Jacob. Actually, let's step back.
What is this report?
What is this report? Is that on top? You see a table in Google Analytics. On the top right of the table, just on top of the right, you see 4 different options to visualize your data. And the third button that you click is the comparison button. And what it does is takes data from one particular time period. Takes the data for the rows that you have, compares it to the average on the site and indexes it. So very quickly you're able to say, does this keyword, this page, this campaign, any dimension you're looking at, does better or worse than site average? So it's actually already applying 2 different dimensions to visualize the data. Now if you think about overlaying on top of 2 segments or more, now you're playing in hypercube space, right? 4 or 5 dimensions, and if you think of the limitation of 2 dimensions, it'd be very difficult to figure out how to visualize the data more efficiently. Maybe we can motion chart it in some way. Yeah. We got 5 dimensions there. So
we could use motion charts. Yeah.
Yes. So Jacob, this is not possible with the visualizations available. We'll think of new visualizations. But the simplest things for you to do actually is really easy. In the table, we would put the 2 segments, and while you'll see 5 columns of data rather than just the one that you chose, for the column that you have chosen, it will compare 2 time periods, and it will show you the data that you're looking for. So the table view has a few extra columns that you can ignore, but the column for the metric will give you exactly what you're looking for once you apply the 2 segments.
Yeah.
With comparison, you're already comparing 2 different things. On top of it, comparing 2 more different things.
A little bit complicated.
It's a bit complicated.
So, but that being said,
nice request.
We do support advanced segments in the API, and if you do come up with some way to visualize in hypercube space, I'd really like to see it.
Yes, Nick's always pimping the API. All right, next one's for you, Nick.
Okay.
Oh, this is a futuristic scenario. From Dorlean Drive, Louisiana, from Doc Brown. Hello, Doc. I don't know if this is a real name. So, hello, whoever you are. If I set my PC clock to the year 2012, January 1st, so is that the day that Mayan said the world would be destroyed?
Oh, maybe, yeah, I think so.
Maybe,
Yeah.
I think that was it. Would a visit to the future be recorded in Google Analytics?
Only if you go like 85 miles per hour.
It's a good one. I like this. Similarly, if I have an e-commerce refund back a year into the past, would I wish to remove, would this technique work? Or do I need to use flux capacitor in order to accomplish this? Nikki, solve this problem.
You read this completely wrong. It's Doc Brown, DeLorean Drive, LA.
Nice.
All right. So you can't go back.
Please don't share your address. This thing is public. Yes, don't share your address.
So it's from a movie.
So,
okay. So you can't go back into the future or forward to the future with analytics. There's no way to override a timestamp. When you send a request to analytics, we actually collect that in logs, and then the logs will have a timestamp. And we actually use the logs timestamp. So there is no way to backtrack into the past or to the future.
I see. So when he's trying to attempt to do this, you can send to his second point into the refund example.
Right.
He can send a negative transaction back into Google Analytics, but it would be recorded with the timestamp of the time it was sent on.
It was collected in Google
Analytics.
Yeah.
So in some reports, if you include the today's date and the past, you can actually negative out. I mean, you can zero out the e-commerce transaction.
For e-commerce, you can.
You can, but still, if you look at that past period and not include the day on which you send the transaction, you'll still see it.
It becomes a little complicated.
There isn't a way to do that. So good one. Oh, here's another one for you, Nick.
Okay.
All the way from Sri Lanka, from Priya in Sri Lanka. Hello, Sri Lanka. And this one says, It's a good one. I have a question about e-commerce tracking. We find GA data different. The GA e-commerce data stored different from real data, probably in the transaction system.
Right.
And we also see that cents are not captured by Google Analytics. Is that so? How does a decimal place taken as different countries use comma or period? So let me answer the first part of it real quick, Nick, which is that there are the way web analytics tools work is on the order thank you page that you have, there's a special e-commerce tag that you implement, and the tag collects the transaction and sends it into Google Analytics or Omniture Web Trends, really any tool. And with all web analytics tools, the problem you will face is sometimes the tag fails to load, for example, any tool. Or it is possible that small number of people have JavaScript turned off. Or there are a number of cases where the tag might not load completely. Or any number of things can happen, which means for a very small number of transactions, your web analytics tool, Google Analytics and every other web analytics tools, might not record that transaction. So the real complete data set might be in your transaction backend system where the order ends up or the lead ends up. So there will always be a difference. It's a couple percent normally, so be aware. Now, while the absolutes don't agree, the trends will be fine. So just be aware it does happen and why it might be happening. Nick, as regards to using the comma, so in this case I think it's saying, rather than saying my order was $25 and 0.25 cents, which is what we would use in the United States, in Sri Lanka, I suppose what they use is $25, comma 25 cents, and that messes things up. Right.
So in the way we track e-commerce is you send us a string with the value. My recommendation is if you are using the comma as a placeholder for where the decimals should go, you should translate that into a dot before you send it to Google Analytics so we can properly report on that.
So it's like a JavaScript rewrite, something happening.
Right. When you read it, when you just take it from the JavaScript, you replace the comma with the dot, and then Google Analytics will be able to read that.
And I don't know what Nick is talking about, but show your developer this video. He would know even if you don't know what Nick is talking about. Right. And they'll be able to help you implement this very, very quickly.
Great. So here's a question for you, Avinash. This is from Joe Logs in Pennsylvania. If I enable age tracker, will this allow me to track how old my visitors are? Also, for visitors that consume lots of content, should I track pig views in a special way? So here's some new metrics that
new methods of collecting data.
Of collecting data,
track
new
pig
metrics,
views in age tracker.
New KPIs for the big book of KPIs out there.
All right, so that was good for a laugh. Thank you very much, Joe from Pennsylvania. We don't have those features at the moment available to you. But on a slightly serious note, though, Google Analytics does prohibit you from collecting PII data about visitors to your website, and age would fall in a personally identifiable information category. So you can't actually track any PII data, email address, name, and all of those kinds of things. So just be careful. But if you do build out track pig views,
we want to know. We want to put it on our blog and share it with the world. All right.
Here's a question from Jacob again in Israel. And Jacob says, knowing the click-through, CTR, is that right? Or conversion rate? I would say CR, so could be conversion rate. By keyword is a great feature in Google Analytics. Is there a way to get this data analyzing entrance keywords on a specific page? I think you can.
Yeah, so keywords are applied at the session level, and a page is at what we call a page or hit level.
I see.
So the challenge is when you look at the standard reports, when you look at the different keywords, you're not actually seeing the pages. So the solution around that is, again, to create an advanced segment for a particular keyword and apply that segment to the content report. And that will show you, for people who comment on this keyword, what are the total number of page views and URLs that they went to on your site.
And while this is not directly related to Jacob's question, I often hear people saying, can I have this metric and that metric? And actually, custom reports is really the best. That's where I go all the time.
Custom reports, yeah.
Rather than using all the different tabs in Google Analytics and have the data spread out, I just drag and drop all the metrics I want into one page in a custom report. And I find that to be a very good use of time. So again, not directly with Jacob, but
absolutely
best practice, if you will.
So here's a question from Craig in Austin, Texas. I have several clients with over 50 sites each, and it would be great if I could set the default number of rows to 50 or 100. Is there a way to set the visible rows, or sites in this case, higher than a standard 10?
Yeah, so at the moment, Craig, if you're talking about rows in reports, Then of course we set it to 10 because we've taken into account the screen resolution of people who access Google Analytics and all of those kinds of things. And what we try to do is provide a compact view of the report so everything fits in one screen and they're able to see it. Of course, many people, including Nick, have a 96-inch widescreen big monitor and he can see 1,000 rows, but Nick is rare. So I am for more than one reason, I think. But for most people, we've actually decided that 10 is a good amount of rows just to fit the report properly so they're able to see the scorecard, see the graph, see the other things. But we'll take it into consideration. Now, in another place we often hear this request is when people log into Google Analytics, the number of sites you see are also capped at 10. And many people have many sites within one account. Is that account?
Right.
Yes, at an account level. And in that case, if I want to just see fewer sites rather than, so I see 10 and they're listed one particular way. Those are not the 10 I want, or I want more. What I end up doing is I just put a star next to each of the profile, and I just see the sites, the few sites that are relevant to me, and not see the sites that are not relevant to me. So those are just two quick.
One solution too is he can use the API.
Oh, I forgot. Nick, API, I forgot. But yes, that's absolutely right.
Right.
And with
so
the API,
you can create your own views. You can get 10,000 rows per request. So
you can overwhelm your users if you want. But it's absolutely right, actually. And in some of our GAGs have actually created customized Excel dashboards that you can take, and the dashboard is already plugged in with Google Analytics, and so it auto refreshes. The dashboard auto refreshes in Excel from data, with the latest data from Google Analytics. So maybe that's a route you want to go, where you just create the spreadsheet that has all the number of rows that you want, and it auto refreshes from Google Analytics, and the clients don't have to log in.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Nick. Now a question for you, Nick. It's a good one, yes. And let's see who it's for. It's from Aaron in New York City. Hello, Aaron. And the question is, in the keyword report, some of my multiple keywords are split into two. For example, it will show Avinash space Kaushik and Avinash underscore Kaushik as two data items, so 2 rows of data, which makes it difficult to do data comparison.
Right.
Very true. What's a way to solve this problem, Nick? I know we have a solution.
Right. So to understand why it's happening, when you go to Google and you do a search and you click to a site, the page you go to, Google Analytics will use the refer URL from the previous page, and it'll look in the URL and say, oh, that you use the query term Avinash underscore Kaushik, and Google Analytics will take that refer query term and say this is the organic search.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so whatever people are typing in Google is what we're reporting, and that's why there's sometimes inconsistencies. But that makes it really hard to do reporting. So there's 2 options that you have. One of them is what we keep on talking about. They're called profile filters, and they allow you to manipulate all the data before it actually hits our processing engine. So what you can do is rewrite all the referrals and the keywords that have an underscore with the space, or ones that have %20 with the space, so it kind of normalizes the data. So that's one option. That way when it gets processed, it'll only show 1 row in the final reports. The other option is that in the reports we have filters where that if you have a common, Kaushik, there's not that many. Maybe in India there's a lot of Kaushiks, but if you're looking for Avinash Kaushik, you can use a regular expression, match on all of them, and you get a grouping together.
Grouping, yes, that's a great one. And of course, this problem also occurs oftentimes as a data quality problem for people who run campaigns. And so you run a campaign right now and you call it Monkey Bunnies. And you change the campaign next month and it's Bunnies Monkeys.
Right.
And somebody's messed up in your campaign organization and now they change the name. And you can apply the exact solution Nick mentioned to say, no, we know those were both the same. Let's just put them into one bucket, because at our end we had a data we had a problem in setting the campaigns, and you can merge them. So that's a good idea. And Nick will add a link to this in the blog post. So to Nick's idea.
Great. Great question. Here's a question from Rachel from Boston.
Hello, Rachel.
I want to update the code to async code. That's great. Do I have to go into the code of every page and manually change it, or is there a tool that'll help me do this?
So Rachel, my question back to you is, how did you do this originally? Was there manual tagging? And typically what happens is, in most websites there's a global element available. So take my site as an example. Every single page on my site has a footer, and every site has a header, and they are standard header on my site. And what I have done is, I had put my original Google Analytics code in the footer, and boom, it's my entire site. And now when I move to async, I just open my header.php file, added the async code there, I hit save, boom, my entire website is tagged with async code. So if you have a global element available to you on your site, then please just go ahead and use that element. If originally you had manually coded your website because you don't have any global element, then I'm afraid that you're going to have to go back and manually do it, because every page needs to have the code and every page needs to have the right kind of code. If you have a mishmash, it can mess things up a little bit. So make sure that if use option number 1 if you have, use the header in this case, or if you don't have it, I'm afraid you'll have to do it manually. So.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We're getting to the end. Last question, Nick.
Okay.
This is some G-Speed in Rhinebeck in New York. It's a very good question. It says, I have offices in 4 locations, Rhinebeck, Kingston, Highland, and Albany. When people search for services in these locations, do I need to add the fact that they are in New York State? Rhinebeck, so in the city, he's saying, does he have to do anything? Rhinebeck, New York, Kingston, New York, Highland, New York,
right.
Albany, New York. And it's a particular problem in the United States because I think when the country was being formed, people ran out of names of cities.
Absolutely, yeah.
So a lot of cities in the United States share names. So we've got tons of Albanys and tons of Highlands in many different states. And I think what G-Speed wants to do is just be able to identify Rhinebeck, New York, Kensington, New York. So how do we do that, Nick?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a challenge. So in analytics, we have countries, subcontinents, states, and cities, and both of those are different dimensions. So when you're looking at a report for cities, we don't take into account the state information.
I see.
So the way to get to that information is to actually create a custom report where you can say, here's New York, and for the state, and then when you drill into New York, you should be able to get your 4 cities.
I see.
So that's one way to do it. The other option is, again, using advanced segments. And with advanced segments, you can say, show me all the states that are in New York, and then apply it to these 4 cities, so that way you know that these cities are in New York. Yeah. Or you can create different expressions for each of these countries and states. So you can say, for this country and this state, or this other, state in the city, or this other state in the city, show me all the reports.
That's right. And then now we have dual dimensions in the table itself.
Right.
So in your Google Analytics table that you have, once you see the city, say 2 dimensions in the drop down on top of the header of the table, you'll see the ability to pick another dimension. Maybe that's another option people can use.
Great.
So that was the last question. We've got some good feature requests. I want to give a thank you to Phil from London in the UK for features connected to the API. A request from DVD Ross from Amsterdam with a feature connected to advanced localization tracking in Google Analytics. We've got another feature request from Phil connected to capturing the some semblance of auto tagging for the Yahoo paid search data, and also requests. Well, the track pig one was from Joe Logs. I think we're going to punt that.
It's not a feature request. I don't know. We'll need a definition for those metrics.
So that's it. Those are the features. We thank you very much for sending us the feature requests. We directly send them to the Google Analytics team so that they can prioritize it based on your requests. So thank you very much for watching the episode 9 of Web Analytics TV. Please go back to our moderator page. You can submit new questions or rate questions of other people who have submitted so we know what your top concerns and priorities are. Thank you very much and happy analytics.
Take care.